Good morning to all of you in Europe, mostly some in India, maybe others listening from all around the world. My name is Maarten van der Schaaf. I'm the director and co-founder of India Connected, and I'm the host of this session. And with me here are SHRIYANS Jain, who is the MD at Viega in India, and my dear colleague, Shavikesh Goel, VP Manufacturing and Special Projects at Maier+Vidorno Altios. We're going to talk today on the discussion. We have a discussion on manufacturing in India. Why is this a good idea? How can this be achieved in a successful way? All kinds of topics we will discuss. But before we start, I would like to give you just a brief background on who we are as India Connected and M+V Altios. To start with M+V, M+V and Altios merged earlier this year, and now they have become actually the largest group for SMEs that want to enter in the world's largest economy, management consulting. But that not alone, also a whole range of practical solutions and pragmatic services on the ground, ranging from market research, finding distributors, to financial support, HR support, logistics support, you name it, and of course also support in setting up manufacturing units, where we are going to talk about today. Our company, India Connected, is based in Amsterdam, and we are partnering with MV and Altios to help Dutch and Belgian companies enter the Indian market. So before we start, I still have two practicalities. As you might have noticed already, you're on mute. But that doesn't mean that you cannot say anything, so please share something in the chat if you have a question that you want me to ask to one of these gentlemen, and I'll pose that question to them. And the second is that we are recording this session, so we will be able to share it with you afterwards. You can look it back, you can share it with your colleagues. So if you have to leave a little bit early and you don't want to miss anything, you can still watch it back. All right, for now, SHRIYANS Jain, welcome. You're our main guest, of course, today. I want to ask you shortly, because I can introduce you, but I like it much better if people introduce themselves and share with us a little bit about Viega, what Viega does, and a little bit about yourself, if you like.
Sure. Thank you. Good afternoon. I hope everybody can hear me well, and I hope that everybody is in good health and their families as well. And Maarten, Shavikesh, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here on this forum and see the growing interest in India in terms of manufacturing, entering into India, and seeing India as an evolving economy that can be not just a service provider, but also a manufacturing hub. So pleasure to be here. A little bit about me. I'm SHRIYANS Jain. I have been with Viega a little over 6 years now, primarily tasked with the responsibility of setting up Viega's operations in India and helping grow the business for Viega in India to lead to a break-even and to hopefully a profitable path in the near future. That is what our goal here in Viega is. Viega is a German company. We're headquartered in Attendon, which is in between Cologne and Frankfurt, about a 2-hour drive from the Frankfurt airport. Viega has been in India about 6 years now. Right at the time when I joined, I was employee number 2. We primarily deal in bathroom fittings. Our primary products are water supply pipes, flush tanks, floor drains, concealed cisterns, as well as urinal sensors. We are a family-run, family-owned company, about 120 years old, and we're proud to be in India. We're happy to be in India, and seeing Viega be successful in India is also a pleasure for me, being an Indian citizen.
Thanks for that introduction, short introduction really, because I think there's a lot to say about a company, a family company that's already existing for over 100 years. You were mentioning already a bit on Viega, to say a little bit more, like the sectors you guys are in. This is mainly construction related sectors. What can you say about this?
Sure. So our primary products are water supply pipes. We have water supply pipes of copper, stainless steel, composite, multi-layer composite pipes. We have specific pipings for the shipbuilding, marine application, as well as some pipes for gas and medical applications. In India, primarily we deal with water supply pipes, stainless steel, as well as multi-layer composite. In addition to that, we have floor heating and ventilation systems. We do not deal in that category in India, but globally we are a big player in that category, floor heating and cooling systems. We do bathroom floor drains, right from your basic traps to premium shower channels that get used in villas or upscale 5-star hotel projects. One of the key product categories that we operate here in India is the pre-wall sector, which is your concealed flush tanks and urinal sensors and flush plates that go on the outside. That is what we primarily do here in India. Yeah.
Okay. So that's rather large, and you're also dependent then on quite a number of sectors. Was Viega touched a lot by the whole COVID situation? Of course, your employees there, the factory, I imagine surely they were touched seriously. But maybe you can say something about that, but also on the business side of things.
Sure. So on the COVID side of things, I have to say that we were the first factory in the zone to get the permission to operate. There is over 45 very large companies, and if you take into account the smaller companies, there is close to 200 companies here, and we were the very first factory to get the permission to operate. So while India had a very long lockdown in April of 2020, we were barely shut down for about 8 days. The zone was very cooperative because we had a lot of export volumes that we had to cater to, and taking into account the export requirements, the zone gave us permission. Of course, taking into account that that we follow by all the conditions that they had from a health, sanitation, social distancing standpoint, of course, which we of course complied with, and we were able to operate basically seamlessly through this entire period. So that has been very good for us. On the domestic side, on the business side, we were fairly impacted because, as you rightly said, to begin with, we are impacted by the real estate and the construction segment, and that segment has been slow to say the least in the last 18 months or so. While demand is picking up, but there were periods when there was hardly any construction activity because of availability of labor or lockdown in zones, which impacted directly our supplies to our dealers, distributors, or end project users. But so it's behind us. So, sorry, I think that is sort of behind us, and we are hopeful that that we come out on top of it.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting to hear, and also good to hear, of course, that and we all hope that COVID is the worst is behind us. So if I understand correctly, from your factory in India, where is it based actually? Because you're talking about a zone. Is it in a special economic zone? Is the location, and where are you in India?
So we are headquartered in Ahmedabad, which is about 550 kilometer north of Mumbai, about 1200 kilometer distance from Delhi. So we're kind of in between Mumbai and Delhi, on the western part of India, in the state of Gujarat. We are located in the Sanand, that is SANAND, Sanand GIDC, the Gujarat Industrial Development Corporation zone. This is one of the premium zones in the country, I would say. If you guys are familiar with the Tata Nano set up their manufacturing facility here, which was supposed to be the world's cheapest car, about a $3,000 car. That factory is located here. Of course, Tata does not make the Nano at that factory anymore. Along with that, one of the other large employers here is Ford Motors. They make the Ford EcoSport and other cars at this factory here. So there's fairly large companies around us, Coca-Cola, Maxxis Rubber, which is a tire company. And then in addition to that, because of the presence of automotive OEMs, there is many tier 1, tier 2 suppliers that are located within a 15 to 20 kilometer radius.
Yeah, and maybe I jump a bit ahead of, because I might wanted to ask this question a bit later to you in my preparation, but it doesn't matter. Conversation is real and live. So why did you guys chose to go to this location? Are there many advantages to go to this specific location, or and what advantages are there or disadvantages are there for to be based in such a zone, or this yeah, can you say something about this?
Sure. Maybe a step back as to why we first chose to enter India. With the Viga's growing sales in India prior to 2015, the family decided that it is the right time to enter India. The products that we make are fairly voluminous. They occupy a lot of space on a shipping container. So we're basically shipping air from Germany to India, which is not very cost effective. And with that, the import duties, etc., make the landed cost of the product very high. So given the increasing sales that we had prior to 2015, the family decided that it is the right time to enter India. As we started looking for options to set up manufacturing in India, this zone worked out very well for us. As I said earlier, it's located somewhat between Mumbai and Delhi. And at that time, that is where about 80% of our sales were based between these two zones, in the northern part of India and in the western part of India. So this zone worked very well for us. Also, given the higher density of automotive suppliers here, labor supply was plenty in terms of educated skilled labor who can run molding machines, who can run CNC machines, who understand all the pros, all these sort of nuances of proper manufacturing in terms of lean manufacturing, things like that. So it was fairly easy to set up factory here in that standpoint. Additionally, with all these, Ahmedabad is a pretty large size city, about 7.5 million population. So you get a fairly good supply of educated, skilled staff, as well in terms of human resources, finance, HR, IT, manufacturing. So that was the reason why we chose to set up shop in this zone.
And for my understanding, was this the headquarters in Germany that executed this study and to decide this location, or was an external party hired, or were you involved with this?
So there was a team in Germany that led the project. We did have some external consultants that we use on the ground here, primarily for contacting the zones, establishing a basic connect with them, setting up appointments. However, all the due diligence in terms of visiting the locations, scoping out the exact plot that we wanted, that was all done by the colleagues in Germany.
I see. And how large is it? I know we had a video, but it wasn't working really well, so we can unfortunately not show it to all the listeners and viewers. But can you describe, when I would be there now, how because I now only see the background where you are, of course, an office. That's of course not the same as a factory, but I can imagine that listeners here wonder, hey, if we are also maybe to say think like, hey, I'm also selling fairly well in India, and maybe it's also interesting for me to start manufacturing there. Can they create a factory? Can they build up a factory that looks more or less the same as the one they have here in Europe?
So that's a very interesting question. It really depends on I think you have to separate the product from the manufacturing process. While it's very easy to copy paste, let's say your German, European, or American factory into India, that does come with the upsides of cost. And you have to see what it means for you from an overall manufacturing and a cost of product standpoint. For us, being a family-run, family-owned company, we had a very clear mandate that what we're doing, we're not doing for the next year, so we're doing for the next generation. And that really set the tone, that the quality of infrastructure that we have, while we know that it cannot be on par with our German facilities, but at the same time, it cannot be your typical Indian factory as well. It has to be an upgraded version of a typical factory, taking into account the local conditions. However, there are certain elements of our German facilities which are, so to say, non-negotiable, which we have added into our factory. If you want, I can sort of explain some of that or emphasize on some of that as well.
Yeah, maybe that's interesting, because I can imagine that it's a fine line. I think German or European companies, or companies from all over the world, really, that want to go into India, have a certain idea on what they want, but they also have a certain reality. If they're just on the streets, if they're even in a taxi from the airport to their first hotel, they will realize that India is a very different country than where they are from, and they might wonder, is it really going to work out to even if I create a zone and I build a big wall around it, and can I really create a factory there that will be efficient, where I can create those quality products? Maybe, yeah, I would like to hear from you, but also maybe Shavikesh, please also join in if you want, because you also have this maybe a larger view on other factories you have seen from other companies. But Shriyans, maybe first as a response from you.
Sure. So as I said, we had a very clear mandate that what we're doing is not for the next years, it's for the next generations. One of the very clear requirements was that we will not compromise with any local or statutory code or legal requirements that are there. That is a big no-no. Anything that is required by law has to be complied with, no matter what the cost is, and which is what we did. Sorry to say, but many companies that try to enter India think that when I enter India, I can sort of I can bypass many of these things, which I would highly not recommend, because it may mean short term you save some money, but long term it just means more pain, and you're not a responsible corporate citizen when you do that. So that was a first thing, that we will not compromise on any local or statutory legal requirements. Number two, we had some let's say internal requirements that had to be complied with. As an example, our insurance carrier requires that between our manufacturing floor and our manufacturing facility and our finished goods facility, there has to be a fire-rated wall. That comes at a very high cost, but that is something that we had to do, and we did that. One of the other requirements that the owners of the company have is that we do injection molding, that all of our injection molding tools have to be located, have to be stored at a proper temperature, in a temperature control environment, in a humidity temperature controlled environment. That of course means more investment, but that is something that we invested in, because that is a corporate requirement. In addition to that, being a family-run, family-owned company, the owners of the company said Ahmedabad gets very hot. Daytime temperature in the summers can go to about 48, 49 degrees, 47 degrees. That we want to make sure that we provide a very comfortable working environment for our workers on the shop floor. So we invested in air cooling our entire shop floor. You may not find very many Indian companies doing that, but given the philosophy of the company, I again emphasize family-run, family-owned. We take care of our colleagues, of our employees. That is an investment that we made. So again, as you rightly said earlier, there is a fine line between what you want to do, what you don't want to do. These are some of the things that we invested in, and that is paying dividends for us right now. When it comes to certain things that we chose not to do, for example, there are many things on the civil side that you can, let's say, buy prefabricated in Germany or Europe or US. We chose to sort of have it done at site, let's say cast at the site, because that typically tends to be cheaper here in India because of the low cost of civil works and civil labor. Yes, that does mean that your finishing is not as great as you would typically find in a factory abroad or a factory that uses precast, but that was something that we were willing to compromise on, knowing that we will be expanding the footprint of the factory in the near future. So in any case, that is going to go either under, over an expanded footprint, or just go waste.
Thanks, interesting. Shavikesh, anything to add from your experience to this?
Yeah, so some of the things which Shriyans mentioned, of course, are important to understand. How do you adapt your international standards to India? But I found from my experience, setting up these plants for other international companies, that many a times they are not aware of, especially the technical teams in those companies. They're not aware of the capability India offers in terms of, let's say, some equipment, for example. I remember for one company, the air conditioning, the HVAC systems for the entire factory is similar to Shriyans says, they're also into injection molding, generates a lot of heat. So they wanted the plant to be actually air conditioned. And they insisted on importing this entire HVAC system from abroad, from somewhere in Europe. And we kept telling them that not only is it more expensive, even the after sales service could be an issue because that company did not have an office here. But because that was a global supplier for them, for HVAC, and they were, I think, in over 100 countries, they had their plants. So wherever they went with the same supplier. And it took a great effort to explain to them why it would not be needed to import from that company. Whereas equally competent international and Indian companies both are available in India. So it took a lot of explaining and trying to convince them before they agreed that yes, India is able to offer the same level of quality and service as it could be an international company in India or an Indian company. So sometimes these small things, and they said we don't care about if it costs more because we want the machine should run, the HVAC system should not break down, because if it breaks down, impacts the entire production process. So there are many such examples, but just to add to what Shriyans said, the one is what is really required and how do you adapt. And I think that way Viega did a very intelligent thing of, homologating what they need to do in India intelligently, not just because they have money to spend it or burn it unnecessarily, but to go with the local knowledge. I think that is where the local knowledge and wisdom is very important when you try to replicate it. I mean, Maarten, your earlier question was that a European company would want to maybe replicate what they did in Europe or elsewhere. So is it advisable or is it doable? Both, I would say, advisable and doable, but one should be also open to what can be modified and should be modified in the Indian context.
Yeah, it's also, of course, an experience that I have of directors that can be also stubborn and say, "Hey, no, we want this," and then there's, of course, I think also just a healthy discussion on saying maybe we can do this in a different way in India that is as good, and maybe even easier and even cheaper, but. Interesting to hear. Maybe even go one step back. Shriyans, you were saying that at a certain point, Viega decided, hey, we're selling now quite a bit in India. It's becoming worthwhile to set up a factory there. Are you only producing for the Indian market, or you're exporting as well? Because I think in your introduction you said you do quite a lot of exports from there as well. So yeah, can you elaborate a bit on this? What percent was it really meant for the Indian market, or was it meant immediately for both exporting as well?
So Viega, typically from a supply chain standpoint, our strategy is to operate, to manufacture in the region for the region. So the factory started out as a local production hub for local India demand, but soon we realized that we do have the capabilities, we do have the space that we are unable to fill up in the time frame that we would have wanted. So that is the reason why we started looking at exports as well. So today our bulk of the revenues, if you will, is coming from exports to Germany, to Italy, to Russia, to Middle East. We're working on projects for Australia, United States, and slowly for one of the categories, which is pre-wall, this factory or this country is becoming an export hub for these markets, as well as the near countries surrounding India, including Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, where we are exporting our products. So while the focus is on domestic and to continue growing the domestic business, products that we are tooled up for, we are producing them here and exporting to these markets as well. But it did not start out that way. This is only in the last, let's say, 12 to 24 months that we've made that shift.
And okay, the last 12 to 24 months, is that so? That's COVID related.
It is sort of COVID related because when COVID hit us, it hit us really hard because domestic sales were impacted, and for a change, sales in Germany were high and they could not keep up with demand, and that is where we said maybe we utilize the spare manpower, the spare resources that we have here, and start looking at better utilizing the resources that we have here in terms of better cost positioning and cost absorption.
That's an interesting turn of events. I can imagine for you that you set up and think of, hey, we're going to grow the Indian business and especially for the region. And I was thinking you were going to say, yes, we are exporting to nearby markets, but you're even saying we're exporting to Germany.
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, our engineers here, our team here has done a fabulous job in terms of looking at products and sort of value engineering those products, understanding what is really required in the market, what is not required in the market, and taking costs out where it may not be, let's say, it may not be value added for the customer. So India also brings to table aspects of value engineering, value analysis that you may not find as effectively in Europe or America for as a matter.
Interesting. Yeah, well, and maybe also still to get back to this this location, because if you're exporting as well, of course, a harbor is important. How far are you away from harbors?
So we are in Ahmedabad. There is a port Mundra, which is about a 4-hour drive. There is seamless rail connectivity. So basically, we send our containers to the city of Ahmedabad, where there is what is known as an inland container depot, and from their inland container depot via rail, the containers move to the port. So we have that option, or we can send it by road all the way to a port near Mumbai. Either one works, and both the ports have seamless connectivity to Hamburg, Rotterdam, Middle East. So it is Singapore. So there is really not a problem of shipping products out from here.
And I know, of course, there's special economic zones in India that are also just especially for export. And so if you are based in a location like this, it's I think tax-wise it's interesting to be there for exports. But when you started out, this was of course not meant for exports, or not specifically for export, but more for the local market.
Correct.
Is this now, when this continues like this, is this a disadvantage now that you're not in such a, that you cannot benefit from tax advantages because you're not in such a zone?
Actually, over the years, the special economic zones, while they exist, if you are, let's say, what is known as a 100% export-oriented unit, you may have an advantage. However, if, let's say, you're doing a mix of both domestic and export, it really depends where you want to be. So there is no significant disadvantage, if there is not an advantage, to being in a zone like ours, which is basically a domestic zone, and we are exporting from here. All of our imports, if we have to bring in components for, let's say, if there is a product that uses 100 components and 80 of those are domestically manufactured and 20 are imported, we do not pay duty on those components because we know we're going to re-export the finished goods back. All of our tools and machines that we import them under a license, and we do not pay any import duties on those equipment or those tools. We just have to sign up for a commitment that basically we have to export a certain value in lieu of the import duty that we've saved. So there are various advantages that exist even in the domestic zones. So if there is not an advantage, there is no disadvantage either, to answer your question.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Anything else we need to add on this, Shavikesh, on locations? Is there, from your experience, what's important?
Yeah, Maarten, yes. I think location, India being such a large country, right? Location analysis is very important. I have seen in my experience again that many companies, come to India following their neighbors or somebody in their, in the same industrial zone. They would be back home. Now the neighbor would have had certain reasons to go to a particular place in India, but the comfort they get that I will be close to my neighbor is what drives many companies to join them. Now, which logistically or operationally may not be the right decision, but they do. And then once you set up a factory, it's not that every day or every year you can change it, or you've set it up and you set it up. You cannot move it, right, under normal circumstances. So that is something which we always advise our clients that they should, even if they are clear that this is the place they want to go to, they should do a validation of that, a neutral, unbiased validation. And because it's for posterity, you're setting up a factory. It's not a factory for 1 or 2 or 5 years. It will maybe there for the next 50 years. Like Shriyans just said that, this was set up for the next generation, not next few years.
Yeah.
So that's the long-term vision. And thankfully, all the international companies who come to India, have that vision. But sometimes in their hurry to, once a decision is made, they just want to go like, pronto. That is when they say, okay, what is the need? I already know, I have some, overview of the market in India, markets in India, locations in India. I decide to go to a particular state, and each state would have a few cities. So that's how typically it works. But I strongly recommend that maybe a few weeks more, maybe 4-5 weeks more, would not do much harm in exploring neutrally which is the best location for.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for adding to that.
I interject on that. You make a very good point that due diligence is the right thing. You have to do your due diligence, and you have to be convinced that the zone that I am in is the right zone, because you just cannot copy and paste things like your neighbor did or what you've done back home, because that typically does not work. I myself seen companies struggle and fail when they've just being with the Joneses and just sort of done that and not quite been successful at that in the long term.
And maybe to add to this, Shriyans, is it in the plans when Viega is growing more in India to expand the current factory, or would it then be more logic to set up a factory in another side of it, in another part of India? Is indeed, Shavikesh was pointing out, India is huge.
Sure. So from a manufacturing standpoint, we will definitely expand here. Right now, we're only occupying about 1/3 of the footprint that we can expand to at maximum. So we have plenty of room to grow. However, in the long run, as our business grows, as our sales grows, as our consumer base, distribution base grows, we may look at setting up, let's say, fulfillment centers around the country. Right now, all of it is based right here in Sanand, along with the factory. We stock at our distributors. But in the future, if as the business grows, we may look at setting up fulfillment centers around the country. But nothing on the horizon in the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand that. All right, another topic I think which is also important and which is often asked by people. In the meantime, listeners, please keep on adding questions. I already saw some questions in the chat. I will post these a bit more at the end, but if you have questions, don't hesitate and add them in the chat. The topic that I want to go to now is which is often asked: is it smart to go with an Indian partner and set up your factory in a joint venture structure? Or would it be better to go just solo? You can decide whatever you like, and you can do whatever. And so, what did Viega do? Did they go in by themselves, or did they find a partner where they started off with?
So Viega entered India on its own, being a family-run, family-owned business. I think that was something that wasn't a no-no, but it made more business sense for the company to enter Viega on its own, while having a JV partner has its own advantages in terms of let's say a shorter learning curve, on-ground presence right from day one, cultural aspects of it. It does come with its downsides as well, and I think that is where the family and the company and the board must have decided to enter India, on its own. With that being said, if you have the right management team to begin with, if you have the right consultants to help you in the initial stages, somebody like M&V, you can navigate that process on your own as well. It does require a little more effort, but that is something that you own, and you are then responsible for it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. So the downsides are. Yeah, what are the downsides of going solo? You say that then maybe it's, you can say, of course, a steeper learning curve, all the things that you just mentioned, then only the other way around.
Right.
But well, maybe a very simple question. It's all about hiring then a good management team and finding good people. How did Viega find you?
How did Viega find me? Prior to Viega, I was employed with a US company, Kohler. Had a very similar job profile at Kohler. And I think these days with the LinkedIn and the other job boards, it's very easy to find the right talent. Viega had a very stringent due diligence process, even in hiring, right from interviews, calling candidates to Germany, doing on-site interviews with a vast number of people. I must have interviewed with at least 20 colleagues in Germany, right from the owner of the company to down to some of the supervisors on the shop floor. And I think it was probably from that, we sort of followed that model for many of our other hiring as well, including HR, finance, other senior functions, to get to a right talent base for the company. Because you have to hire people who fit in the company culture. And I think it is establishing that overall mix, that you have a mix of people who are able to drive the organization in the right direction, while taking into account what is required from an overall, let's say, Viega Global or Viega Germany standpoint, the company culture that I speak.
Yeah. So hiring the right people and then accepting that you really need to spend a bit more time on this hiring, these first numbers, well, the first, but of course also the rest of the team. But initially, super important to focus then on hiring the right people and maybe using the consultants who you need if you don't have any contacts in India yourself.
Right. And then it's important to sort of get those people involved in the decision-making process right from day one, because it's very easy later on, right, to say, hey, I didn't do this, somebody in Germany did it, so I'm not responsible for it. And I think that's what Viega did, and it did it well, right from the product strategy to the equipment to the construction. All the decision-making was left to the team on the ground. Of course, we had to consult with colleagues in Germany, but the ultimate decision-making stayed with us. So then there is no lack of ownership if something goes wrong. To Shavikesh's earlier point, if I import something from Germany and there is no service available for it in India, then it's very easy for some of the maintenance colleagues to lift their hand and say, hey, I don't know, I didn't buy this, I didn't install it, call somebody from Germany to fix it. But now when the team is responsible for the decision making, they've made those decisions, then they tend to own them.
Yeah, and so of course you are still there. The first employee is also still there, the first employee in India.
He actually, we replaced that gentleman a couple of years back. He decided to part ways with Viega and move to another organization.
Yeah. Okay. And in generally, because this is also something that we hear a lot, that people change jobs or can change jobs quickly. I can imagine that if you have a strong company culture, it's important to find the right people, to train those people, and when they finally, you don't want them to leave after a few years, because then, you cannot reap the benefit of all that investment in those people. How is this? How are you guys dealing with this?
So I think that is where strong HR leadership, strong training and development comes in. You have to coach, mentor, guide the team to make sure that they deliver to the task that is at hand. At the same time, you have to be prepared that people have career aspirations, people have financial aspirations, people have personal aspirations, and if the company is unable to meet them, they will find other jobs, because there is plenty of jobs available outside if you're a skilled, educated professional with a good pedigree. So this is something that you have to be prepared for. This is India. This is part and parcel of the game. On our shop floor, for something like €1 a month, we see operators leave. We've spent a year training them, coaching them, guiding them, and if they get €1 more, if I'm unable to match it, they will leave. And I do not see anything right or wrong with it. That is just how things are, and we have to manage that. We try and manage our attrition rate by providing a lot of value-added, let's say, benefits to our employees, which keeps them engaged, which keeps them motivated, because they know that Viega is a good place to work, where they can have a stable career. But with that being said, if they have better opportunities outside that we cannot meet, then we cannot stop them from going elsewhere.
Yeah, so yeah, obviously. So how large is your workforce? Just for everybody to get an idea of how large you are there, the organization.
We're currently about 200 people, about 150 right here in Sanand, and then about 50 located throughout the country, which is primarily our sales and marketing and customer service team.
Yeah. Okay. And well, I think there was also a question. Let me have a look here on specifically on this. Someone is asking, what about trained manpower to operate the production sites? You're already mentioning there's quite a lot of manufacturing factories of foreign players, of Indian players. Is there a lot of competition to get these people, or do you have to do a lot of training yourself in-house?
Right. So there is competition, to say the least, in order to get a trained, skilled manpower. However, when we bring them on, we do have our own intensive training program, exhaustive training program that we put them through in terms of our requirements for quality, more importantly, our requirements for safety. We make sure that we are compliant with all of those things. So you do have to spend the time and effort to bring the right people on board, mold them according to your requirements, and then make sure that they are engaged, motivated to stay on with the company for as long as they can, or as long as you want them to.
So, and you work here with, I can imagine you have your own HR department, but you also work with external recruiters, or?
Sure. So we have our own recruiting team in-house, but we do work with external consultants as well, wherein if we need very specific skilled, let's say staff resources, or very specific skilled operator resources, then we work with those recruiters to help us get them on board as well.
Okay.
His prior life, Shavikesh was a recruiter. He can talk more about that.
Yeah, is there something you want to add here, Shavikesh?
Yeah, Maarten, one important thing which I would say Viega did, really well was to trust the local, talent in India. So you'll find many companies, they, especially for the leadership and senior management functions, they, in the beginning, they try bringing in their own, known colleagues, or transferring colleagues from different countries or from the headquarters to a country like India, because they believe, and that's a false belief, but they believe that the right talent may not be or would not be available in India. And I think that is where it's very important to trust the local knowledge and talent, because that is what will actually help you find better solutions which are for India, made in India, made for India. Because what happens is, when you have an expat coming in, and especially on the manufacturing side, sales may be still manageable to an extent, even though that's another topic we can talk forever. But for manufacturing, for sure, while it is important for them to set up the same processes, manufacturing processes as they have elsewhere, the execution of the same should be left to the Indian colleagues, right? And I would say Indian engineers, especially, and Indian technical people, are no less than anyone else in the world. And increasingly now companies are realizing that. Maybe a few years or few decades ago, they were not very confident, but now they are. So that way, it's very important. And Viega did the right thing, getting all Indian colleagues here. I'm sure they would have had a few colleagues coming in and helping set up the initial production. But the whole execution while the factory was being set up, and then the running of the factory, has to be for sure done by Indian colleagues. So you need Indian colleagues, and while it's a large country, large population, and finding somebody suitable for you could be like finding a needle in a haystack. But I can assure you, having done this for many years, there are very good people out there who are really raring to add value. So
yeah,
I just want to add that, and that would be the right.
Yeah,
the
that's
results for
useful addition. Thanks for this.
One point that Shavikesh made is very important. We even at Viega, for every function, basically, we had a colleague who was responsible for Viega India. So there was somebody on the finance side, somebody on the SAP IT side, somebody on the HR side, who was our go-to guy in Germany. So whatever we needed from Germany, from a standpoint of, let's say, policies, procedures, documentation, there was this one person who was assigned to India, and they helped us get that. Even to date, on the engineering side, on the supply chain side, we have that one person who's dedicated to India. For finance, we have one person dedicated to India, and they help us to do that. So while you have the right talent and the right people in India, you also have a connection point in Germany, so that you're not lost in the maze, and you go to that one person who helps you sort of get what you want from, let's say, so to say, the mothership.
Yeah, that's clear. So it still means a lot of course, commitment and focus also on the side of headquarters. Even if you hire a great Indian team, they cannot do it alone, obviously. I might gonna jump a bit from topics, but this is the nature of answering questions in the chat box. Someone is asking here also about Gujarat. Are there advantages or also disadvantages of going there? You already mentioned, of course, well, you're 4 hours away by train from a harbor. There's skilled labor there. Any other advantages or maybe disadvantages of settling down in Gujarat? You can or why it was chosen for this location and not, for example, south of India or Kolkata, east of India?
I think really depends on what product or what category you're operating in. If you are into, let's say, engineering type sectors where you're looking at manufacturing, then the states of Gujarat, the state of Gujarat, the state of Maharashtra, which is down south where Mumbai is located, offer a lot of advantages because many of these companies, many of similar industries already exist. So you're able to piggyback off of them and learn from them, and you can get talent, you can get resources right away. So there are these advantages. One of the other advantages that Gujarat has is that it is a very friendly environment for industries, especially foreign companies or large Indian companies trying to set up manufacturing or trying to set up base here. And that is why you see why so many foreign companies want to be located in Gujarat, because of the support that the zones, the support that the government provides. Of course, one downside to Gujarat is if you're Dutch or German, it's a dry state, so you don't get any beer, but that is something that you have to manage.
So meetings in Delhi then now and then.
Right, meetings in Delhi or Mumbai.
Okay, that's yeah, that's and of course Gujarat also became known as one of the first states that was so investment friendly under when Modi was the not the prime minister yet, but was the how do you call this, the chief minister in Gujarat, huh?
Under the leadership of Modi, when he was a chief minister, and of course now the prime minister, I think a lot of investment has come into the state of Gujarat and continues to do so. I mean, if you look at large manufacturing, there is Hyundai Motors, there is Toyota, there is Tata, there is Honda. So it continues to grow, and of course there is many automotive ancillaries, other than that, engineering and pharmaceutical companies that are located, let's say, within a 100-kilometer radius. And you see a lot of foreign companies coming here for those reasons, because of the investment-friendly climate that you have here.
One very open question that's also coming in: what do you see as the largest challenges at this point? The factory's there. You're running now for 6 years. Of course, let's not talk again about COVID, because everybody knows about this challenge. But what business-wise, what have been major challenges for you and your team?
I think in general, our challenge has been how do we grow the business exponentially? India is a very competitive place. The products that we have are of the premium segment. While consumers are upgrading to a more premium lifestyle when it comes to kitchen and bath and sanitary products, yet that percentage of the population is fairly small. So how do we grow our business exponentially to get to a break even faster? That has been our biggest challenge, and that is what keeps me up at night, every night, to see how do we get to a faster profitability on the overall business. You have to have the right products for the market. We came in with a lot of products that were engineered in Germany for Germany that we were trying to adapt to India. in the last several years. We have modified many of our products to be more fitting for the Indian consumer from a let's say installation standpoint, from a usability standpoint, and definitely from a costing pricing standpoint as well. So that is one of the challenges very many foreign companies face when they come to India with their own engineered, let's say, European or American products.
Yeah, that's of course a very interesting point that you mentioned there. It's not simply that you can sell the same box, so to say, in every country, and definitely not in India. Because you mentioned this now rather lightly, but it must have been difficult also, I think, for the headquarters to maybe accept that they cannot sell or that they have to adapt their products. Because often what we hear is, of course, a lot of R&D has gone into this to build this supreme product, and then for India it's going to be adapted and it's going to be sold at a lower price, maybe more a bit simpler product in a way. How were these? Did you have heavy discussions about this with headquarters, or can you share a bit of a background on this? How this process was?
So that has been one of our biggest challenge for teams on both the sides to come to common ground in terms of what is the right product to offer in India at the right price point. India, as I said earlier, is very competitive when it comes to products like these, and typically our German engineered products do not fit the bill in terms of the overall cost positioning that those products have. So to take a product and value engineer it, which could mean lowering down the specifications while maintaining the overall quality of the product, is a challenge that any engineer, any manufacturing facility faces. So we've had some very difficult discussions, to say the least, on both sides. And I think we've given the knowledge base of the team in Germany, the support system that we have in Germany, we are now finding that right middle ground, wherein we are offering the right products to the consumers in India, and also adapt some of our existing products for exports into other markets in the surrounding countries.
So that is really that challenge, as you're saying, like the right product at the right price, and that's in the end what is needed to realize that exponential growth. I think that's, if I summarize you in a bit freely.
Yes.
And you're on your way there. That's what you're saying. But still looking for, because maybe also for new products that come on board that you have to adapt then. So it's a continuous process, challenging. Of course, someone is always asking this about bureaucracy in India, especially of course for foreigners. This is a complete black hole, so to say. So probably Viega is also happy that an Indian team is dealing with this. But can you say a little bit about, when setting up a factory, the bureaucracy and maybe also the timelines where people have to think of?
Sure. So I think it's I don't think it's a black hole. India has become fairly transparent when it comes to policies and procedures, and pretty much everything is laid out online. At a simple Google search away, you can find all the requirements that are there in terms of setting up a factory or getting the licenses. It is very similar to any other country, right? If you were to set up a manufacturing facility in Belgium, Switzerland, Netherlands, Germany, US, anywhere, you would have to abide by the codes and standards. You would have to get your drawings approved. You would have to get your fire plans approved. And it's the same thing here. Yes, it tends to take a little bit longer here. And I think that is something that you have to plan for, have the right contingencies in place. As we alluded to this earlier, have the right team on the ground. When in doubt, use a consultant who is an expert in this, who can help you navigate through that process to get to the end goal. It's not really a black hole. The environment here has become fairly industry friendly. If you do things right, if you follow the law of the land, which you should, then it is not a hassle at all. We got all of our licenses. We are operating fairly, we have no intervention from anybody on the outside. We have inspectors come in, do their due diligence. They ask for, let's say, employee records or pollution control records or fire records, inspect fire lines, which is sort of normal. And we entertain them and provide them with all the documentation that they need. And if they need something else, then they say, hey, you have so much time, send it to us by then, and we comply with that. So I think you have to get that notion, that mindset off, that the bureaucracy in India will hurdle my entry into India. It is similar to any other place, anywhere else on the planet.
Well, that's a very positive note. Do you see similar things, Shavikesh? Also, maybe also in different sectors that it might be different, but or different states. I don't know what the differences are there. Can you share? Can you give us a bit of a broader view on this?
So, Martin, I've always, maintained, and I say jokingly, but it's a fact, that Murphy's law, that if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. And Shriyans actually already, alluded to that or hinted that, that you should plan your timelines, properly, right? Bureaucracy is one of the things, and it's improving very fast. If you look at the ease of doing business rankings, India has, climbed in the last 4 or 5 years, phenomenal. And as we speak, it's improving, right? So it's not that we are from the bureaucracy side, sitting on that, this is how we are and we'll not change, will not improve. So everyone is consciously, very actively working, proactively working. It's such a pleasant change when you talk to officers now and you see, and if I were to look back maybe 10, 12 years ago or 15 years ago when I first started in this, manufacturing business, so you see a great change in the attitude, right? So it's definitely improving a lot. But that said, you still have to plan your timelines, and it's not that the bureaucracy will put hurdles. They will always facilitate, but they will also not cut any corners. So sometimes, I know this from again experience that some companies believe that because India is an emerging market, you can get things done, quote unquote, which may have been maybe decades ago, but no, not any longer. So you have to get it right. And if you try to short circuit the process, and there are enough consultants who will try to tell you, teach you that I will get it done for you. My simple advice, and I think Shriyans will agree with me, is that please don't fall for that, because the problems you will have later will be much more difficult. So that way, I would say, to answer a direct question, bureaucracy, yes, it is there to facilitate. There could be sometimes difficulties, but if you already have planned well, and it's not that you have to plan 1 year extra for that, to overcome these hurdles, if there are hurdles, if you consider them hurdles, maybe a couple of months at max. And if your documentation is right, as it is needed. I'll tell you a live example. Shriyans did mention about fire plants. So for one, maybe take a minute. For one of the companies, we were setting up a plant in India, a German company. So their fire safety measures were way ahead of what the Indian, National Building Code suggests, right? And they said that we will only have this because world over we follow the same. When they did everything and the fire safety officer came for the approval for a visit inspection, he said, but where is this as per the National Building Code? They said, no, it's there, but this is much beyond that. We are following the latest American standards and all. This is again about 5, 6 years ago. But this gentleman from the fire office kept on insisting, no, I have to follow this. You show me this, and this is okay. So they actually had to redo part of that, an entire, and it was a huge facility for just fire, operations, to convince this person that yes, this is also compliant with the Indian laws, which still are maybe about 20 years behind that law, what they were following, the international fire safety norms.
Yeah.
But so would you call it bureaucracy creating hurdles? No, they're following their norms, Maybe after 10 years, they also follow the same. So these small things, if you look at from a negative side, so no, this is very cumbersome, or you say, no worries, I'm already beyond what you're asking for, but I also will follow you. So it's basically following the law of the land, which most companies, by the way, want to.
That's a nice example. I get more questions coming in, but we cannot go on for too long anymore, because Shriyans, you've been with us already for an hour, and so I actually would like to round off maybe, but it's always nice to have a bit of a nice final message that people will continue their day with. So maybe in short, Shrijans, what is there to learn from the Viega experience in India for foreign companies, or what advice could you give as a like a final advice?
So I think as a final sort of to round it out, I think India is definitely open for business. India is looking for investments. India is the right place to invest at this point in time, given the geopolitical situation that you see around us. India is the place to be, with a growing economy, with a growing middle class and affluent luxury market. I think this is the right place to be, with the right products and services that meet the requirement of the people in the country. From a standpoint of setting up manufacturing, I think we talked about many of the aspects that you hire the team, and you hire the team early, make them responsible, engage them, involve them in the overall process. That is when you get the success. You make sure that that what you're doing is you are bringing a mix of what your global requirements are and what the in-country requirements are. If you try to just copy paste, you probably will not be successful. What you build, you not only have to build it, but you also have to ultimately operate it. You have to maintain it, and you have to ensure that the systems and processes that you're installing are there to be managed and maintained for the lifetime of the product. You have to keep in mind the maintenance and service aspects of it. Also, the management support, ensure that you have enough executive management support to be successful in India. India is a difficult country to be in. It is a difficult market to operate in with its own challenges, and you have to have the right level of executive management support to be successful in India.
Thanks for those last remarks. And also, before we let you go, Shavikesh, maybe you can also say some last words also on the services that you provide with your team. And then before people leave, there were some questions asked also in the chat that weren't answered specifically, but our team will get back to you and by email, and we'll make sure that you get an answer to your question. So, yep. Shavikesh, maybe some last remark from your side.
Thank you, Maarten. So yes, that MNV Altios, we are a company which offers 360-degree services to set up a factory, all the things you need to do that. And more importantly, like Shriyan said, India is a place, is a market where you should be looking at manufacturing, especially the government for the last 6-7 years. 2015 is when they launched the Make in India campaign, and this is primarily to help the world understand what strengths India has on the manufacturing side. So, like Shriyan's, again, I quote him that we are open for business. There are challenges, yes, for which we are there. I mean, you are welcome to talk to us or others if you wish to. But definitely take help and plan well. I mean, I know international companies plan really well in advance. I mean, the Germans and the Japanese are known to plan at least 80% of the time they spend on planning and 20% execution. Maybe you plan 90% for India. But that could be the only fine tweaking you may need. But otherwise, India, is rich in resources as a country, both human resources and material resources. And market, of course, is there. It's a growing, burgeoning market. So no reason why one should not be here. In fact, as a team, we are already getting inquiries from companies who are looking at India as an alternative to China, or an option B, that they're not getting out of China, but they say we also, thanks to pandemic, the COVID pandemic, they're also looking at can we have another base in Asia, which also has enough market for us, not only for making in India and exporting, but also for local consumption. So with these things in mind, I am sure companies are already thinking about India, and any further queries, help you need, I think we're all here to help.
Wonderful. Thanks for that. Thanks for this insightful session, words, sharing the experiences of Viega. Shrijans, thank you so much for your time. and good luck with the upcoming time at Viega, and we will definitely keep on following you. Shavikesh, you as well. Thanks for your insights as always, and to all our listeners and viewers, I would like to say thanks for being with us today, and have a good day. See you next time.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Shriyans. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.